Good evening, Dungeon Masters, I'm Baron Derop. Dungeons & Dragons mystery adventures can be confusing to construct, especially when players go into mystery adventures assuming they'll need bonuses to investigation and perception checks while casting as many divination spells as they can muster. But what if these preconceptions are symptoms of poor mystery adventure design? Players who intend to solve a mystery must obviously have all the necessary information needed to do so. Therefore, placing any required information behind a skill check is just bad adventure writing. If players must find a murder weapon that was tossed into the fireplace, they should just see it in there. No roll required. Of course, the act of removing those skill checks begs the question. If the players are given these clues for free, how do we reinforce the feeling of investigation? As dungeon masters who already know all the adventure's details, it's easy to fool ourselves into thinking that giving these details away for free will too easily illustrate the full scope of the mystery, and thus allow the players to solve the mystery too quickly. But this just isn't the case. Players only have the limited scope of the clues placed immediately in front of them, and while they might be able to make a few first hunch is always right crime noir style deductions, the clues you provide to your players, at least initially, should illustrate such an incomplete picture that correct guesses are near impossible. Further, these incomplete data points underscore a good mystery adventure setup. Because the players have incomplete data, they must go from location to location and piece together disparate parts of a whole story, building their analysis slowly over time. In fact, by placing the clues your players need front and center, players will ponder if all the clues they have fit together into a cohesive story. They will do that pondering instead of wondering if they have all the pieces they need just to flesh a story out. Organizing found clues is a much more fun experience than realizing something was missed and backtracking. When constructing the clues for your mystery adventure, remember that the act of solving the mystery comes about from moving from location to location as the players track down possible leads. In other words, when the players are introduced to the mystery, they should have enough leads to recognize further locations to investigate. What's more is that these follow-on locations should also contain clues, which tie all these possible next step locations to each other in a web of connected data points. If at a murder scene, a knife, a trashed bouquet of flowers, and a pocketed letter written by a scornful ex-lover all lead the players to a blacksmith, the florist, the post office, and even the murder victim's love interest, each one of these follow-on investigatory locations should house further clues which tie all of them together in addition to fleshing out the perpetrator. As an example, information while snooping around the post office after players talk to the mailman should provide leads to the blacksmith or to the florist. Further, information gained while at the flower shop should also somehow connect to the ex-lover and the blacksmith, and so on. This isn't to say each clue should be directly related to one another, but that each location where clues exist should stitch themselves together through those clues. In this way, players will never feel like they're robotically checking off a list of possible leads, but instead have direct, tangible motivation to prioritize where to go next and what to do next. The clues immediately in front of them will excite players as they investigate the next relevant location they were planning to investigate anyway. They'll feel like they're hot on the trail. By the way, if it's a new party you're looking for group, this video's sponsor has the app for you. Have you ever struggled to find players for your new game and needed an elven wizard, an orc fighter, or a goblin rogue to flesh out your party? Looking for Group matches you with other players who want to join your game. Just answer a few quick questions like what games you want to play, what days you are available, if you're a newbie or a veteran gamer, whether you play or DM, and if you prefer online or in-person games, and Looking for Group takes care of the rest. Check out the Indiegogo link in the description below and get connected to other RPG players on Looking for Group. Now back to the video. Red herrings, or clues that lead to nowhere, might be fine for a dramatic moment in novels or cinema where the stump detective reevaluates information, only to realize they overlooked something. But that's only because the author or screenwriter is in total control of the story. They can send their protagonists back to their office to review notes and suss out overlooked details wherever it's narratively appropriate. However, Dungeon Masters don't and shouldn't have that kind of narrative control. Therefore, Dungeon Masters shouldn't attempt to use red herring clues in a way that disrupts the flow of an investigation. These false clues, which lead to true dead ends, are the fastest way to suck the enjoyment and momentum out of a mystery adventure. With that said, this doesn't mean that red herrings should be entirely abandoned as a narrative tool. Including a red herring in your mystery lineup can instead be used to build a bait-and-switch surprise. Red herring footprints of a total beast wandering into a cave should lead the party to something entirely different than what the players expected to find. Deep within that cave, players might find stilts with mummified giant lizard feet strapped to the bottom, and animal calls resting on a stool next to the stilts, the same kind of animal calls used by another NPC the players thought for sure was innocent. Red herrings, therefore, are an opportunity not to throw players off course, but to totally subvert the expectation of what the clue will lead to. In this way, this sudden, surprising recontextualization keeps the players moving forward while allowing the players to feel duped in a fun and engaging way. Lastly, it's worth mentioning when trying to run a mystery, meticulously laid plans can go awry thanks to divination spells like Zone of Truth, Legend Lore, Speak with Dead, or even a well-timed Detect Magic. Of course, this doesn't mean you have to come up with heavy-handed reasons to shut these spells down either. Instead, as you develop your web of clues, think about how you can use each divination spell your players have access to offer more information to your players and possibly create further connections to other clue locations. Additionally, this gives you an opportunity to ponder how each divination spell your players can cast might reveal too much information, and thus needs narrative adjustment. You may discover that, for example, an in-person encounter with a particular NPC who knows too much information, a Detect Thoughts spell might end the adventure immediately. By shifting the NPC's encounter, or rather the way the NPC transmits information to the players from in-person to written mail correspondence, you protect the adventure's cohesiveness and prevent players from feeling cheated out of a divination spell's cast. This little bit of extra work further tightens your web of information and protects the mystery from being reduced to a single NPC's failed wisdom save. In a nutshell, give your players all the clues they need to solve the mystery, make sure the mystery's clues reference a tight web of related locations, and review the divination spells your players have access to. In doing this, your mystery adventures will become truly cohesive and worth solving. If you'd like to help me make more content like this in the future, please consider supporting me on Patreon or becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching, Dungeon Masters, and until next time, good night.